Craig Park, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate doing this, man. This is, you and I have been getting to know each other over the last almost 12 months, I'd say.
Yeah.
Something like that. From a collaboration that we did with Elixir. And I've been stoked by the Roasterie, which is where you work. Which is a roastery called the Roasterie.
That's right. We got in the game early, so
you did. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, the generic name makes more sense knowing that the company's 25 years old rather than like 5 months old.
How did it all get started? Because where are you guys based? Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, right? Kansas City, Missouri. So we actually started just in the basement of Danny O'Neill, who was the founder of the company, still is the CEO and still very involved. He was a foreign exchange student in Costa Rica in 1978. And while he was there, he's from a very small town in Iowa. So he says before he did this foreign exchange program, which no one really knows how that happened or why that happened. Coming from Denison, Iowa, this tiny little small town. No one in his family, he's one of 10 kids. No one in his family owned a suitcase. Nobody had ever had a passport. Wow. No one had, I don't think he'd ever, definitely not left the state, maybe not even left his little hometown. So he did a foreign exchange program in Costa Rica, and I think his junior year of high school, maybe his senior year. And the family, he was in Alajuela, just outside of San Jose, and the family that he stayed with would pick coffee during the time that he was there. So he'd go out with them and pick coffee cherries, and that was kind of the first experience that he had with coffee, and just fell in love with really everything about it. So the people, the country, the culture, both the culture of Costa Rica in the late 70s, and then also just the culture around coffee production, coffee harvesting, processing, etc. So then moved back to the States and did a few different jobs for a while. He worked for a company called Weyerhaeuser, selling boxes, corrugated boxes. And in 91 moved to Kansas City, and then in October of 93, started a coffee roasting company in his basement. So in Kansas City, in a little neighborhood called Brookside, which is kind of a quaint old little community. Lots of really cool houses with a lot of character and a lot of history in the city or in the neighborhood. So started there, and then had a tiny little 12-pound Civets roaster, and then, I mean, everything that Danny's ever done has been full of passion and full of anything that could, everything that it takes to make a great entrepreneur. So in 93, and I tell this story all the time because it's such a funny picture of how a market can develop over 25 years. 25 years is a short time, right? Like it's not ages, but it is at the same time.
It is, but
yeah, especially like this last 25 years, like in so many different fields and industries. It's
the last 25 years has been, when you look at how rapidly things have been accelerating, like it's been exponential, right? So I feel like the 25 years before the last 25 years were a much slower 25 years. So 25 years in these last 25 years could have been 100 years in the 25 years behind that, right? Yeah, so carry on.
So he went door to door for 3 months trying to sell a bag of coffee to somebody that wanted to buy coffee. So he always talks about like when he fell in love with coffee in the late 80s and early 90s, it like was not cool to love coffee. Like you were kind of like weird. Nobody got it. People didn't like really love coffee the way that we love specialty coffee today.
Were they all drinking instant? Was it still like Folgers and Nescafe and that kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And so he went door to door for 3 months before getting someone like today.
Not even one bag.
You could own a roastery for 12 minutes and somebody would be like, yeah, I'll throw you $12 and buy a bag of coffee. Yeah. He did not make a single sale for 3 months. And and our first sale was to KU Med, a hospital extension of the University of Kansas that's in town. And then, I mean, after like 3 months of the first sale, but then after that, man, it really took off very quickly. So in 94, we moved into our first plant. We bought a 48-pound roaster.
1 year later.
Yeah. And then in 96, we moved into a larger plant and bought a 1-bag roaster. And then in 2000, moved into another larger plant and bought a 2-bag roaster. And then we've been in the plant that we're at now in downtown Kansas City, I think since 2008. So
how many roasters do you have in there now? I know you just got a new one.
Yeah,
right?
Now we have 4 roasters. And we started the transition from civets to Loring roasters in 2015, which was just a game changer in terms of, being able to control the roast profiles of our coffee, and not only to control what we're doing in the roaster, but then just the repeatability of those machines is it's amazing. They're incredible company. So yeah, we have 2 1-bag roasters. We have a 60-kilo roaster and a brand new 7-kilo roaster, all Lorings.
How did you become a part of his story?
So my background is actually in grocery. So I would say that I have an unconventional kind of entry into the industry, but it's not unconventional because everybody has like a random way that they just fall into the industry. So my background is actually in grocery. I started when I was 15 or 16. Started working at a company called Hy-Vee, just a grocery store chain here in the Midwest, and was working as a cashier and bagging groceries and getting carts all throughout high school. And then in college, moved into a different department, took on a little more responsibility, and then went to college for a few years at the University of Missouri and transferred to Hy-Vee there. And then at that time, there was a small health and whole foods, very farm-to-table oriented farmers market that opened up called Lucky's Market. Mm-hmm. And a few of us from Hy-Vee kind of moved over to that store when it opened up. And at those stores, they are like geared for growth, like to the nines. I mean, they just grow and grow and grow and grow until somebody like a Whole Foods or something buys them out. So it's a really, really interesting model and really interesting segment of the grocery industry. But anyways, so I was there for a couple of years and moved into a management position. And in those types of stores, to manage a department, and I was managing a produce department, you really manage everything. So the staffing, the personnel development, the coaching, the scheduling, supply chain, the quality, working with suppliers, and that was anything from big produce vendors to tiny little local Missouri farmers that would just grow potatoes or just grow green beans and would sell a couple bushels at a time. So doing that, and then kind of learning some about retail, some about back of house quality, and then just learning how to develop and maintain quality processes and stuff like that. Really ended up transferring very well to what I'm doing now, which is green coffee buying and quality management here at the Roasterie. So my wife had graduated from the University of Missouri out of their nursing school and got a job at Children's Mercy here in Kansas City. So we were moving back to Kansas City, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I'd stopped going to school because I was in the education program and it was way too expensive for a job that wasn't going to pay very much, and I wasn't totally sold on teaching. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and had in the last couple of years of college, like a lot of us, started drinking coffee, started drinking specialty coffee, started learning more about it, started appreciating it. So I had a friend who was working at one of our cafes here in Kansas City. At the time we had 3, now we have 9. So got a job there as a barista part-time and fell in love with it like as quickly as you can. I mean, anybody that's that's been in the industry for a while, even for a short time. I mean, there's such a contagious element to the industry where you can really get caught in it really quickly.
I think it's quite addictive, honestly.
It is. It
just
totally is.
From personal experience.
Yeah.
I was at a cafe doing some training today, and it's been like 2 years since I've worked in a cafe. And I was in there today. That they are open tomorrow, and doing all the espresso training, and they're shit scared of this is the first time they've opened a cafe and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, I'm so jealous of what you're about to experience.
Yeah.
I miss it so much, to the point where I said to them, I might come in and do a few shifts for you over the next month, because it's so addictive.
It is. It is.
Right? Like with people, and like my life is so filled running the 2 businesses that I'm running, and it can be quite solitary. Because you spend I'm writing a book now. I'm getting all of that stuff. I'm in front of my laptop, and the thing that I miss the most, Scott and I were talking about this the other day, because neither of us are actually doing the thing that we love about coffee anymore, which is engaging with people and sharing that experience. And it's like, fuck, maybe I do need to, like, once every week or 2 weeks, just go and spend a half a day working in a cafe somewhere, just so that I can reconnect and reinvigorate myself with that thing that I miss so much. Like watching somebody drink something that you've created and be like, oh my God, the eyes roll back in their head and they're like, this is heaven. And
at our Brookside Cafe, which is the one that I was working at, actually is like 6 blocks from the house that Danny started out of his basement at. So it's a pretty special location, a very intimate community. Everybody's super oriented with the brand. People remember like 25 years ago smelling Danny roasting a couple blocks away from their living room.
Wow.
That cafe had a really special dynamic, and most of our cafes do. We probably 85% of the people that would come in every day, we knew their names, we knew what they liked to drink, we knew, things about their life, because it's just such a community-oriented cafe, and it's a community that really valued, relationships and knowing one another. So, I still get a pretty healthy dose of that working at the Roasterie, because we have a pretty good sized cafe as a part of the Roasterie. So there's still plenty of interaction. There are some days where I just want to spend a full work day
bar shift
behind bar and interacting more heavily with
the coffee and the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Dialing in, and
it's special.
There's something about it that, like, eventually you have to move on from there. But I was lucky in the sense that, because I had one foot in coffee and the other foot in my music career, I had no real desire of, I've got to shoot my way up through the coffee industry, because I'm going to end up running my own label and doing all of that. So I was like, no, I'm just going to be a barista for 15 years. And I was. And I'm like, I never got to miss that. And now that I have had to get out of that, which we all have to eventually, like you can't be a barista forever.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you get away from it, you're like, okay, this is a drug.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of addiction it is, but there's something, perhaps it's the connection that you get from people. I'm an introverted extrovert, and so my alone time is awesome to me, but the extroverted part of me used to get fed every time I was behind an espresso machine.
Yeah, I'm similar. There's just something, I don't necessarily like need a lot of interaction. I'm totally fine. There's some days where you're catching up on, spreadsheets or emails or whatever. And I'm totally cool. I don't ever feel like I need the energy from interacting with people, but it's such a special part of the job. I definitely don't think, we do probably 65 or 70% wholesale. So we do a good amount wholesale versus retail. But I don't know if I could work in an environment that doesn't have the retail component or the service component. I mean, they're always serving, right? But the face-to-face serving drinks, regular people that and they're on their way to work or whatever, and yeah, that's a lot of fun.
I often wonder, do you think that the way that we're raised, those of us who want to be a part of this crazy thing that is being a barista and hospitality, do you think that it lends itself to people who are raised in certain cultural aspects where hospitality is important?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, part of it's personality too. Can and can't be, I guess. I mean, I don't have like a super bubbly, incredibly outgoing personality. I mean, I love things like this. I love talking to people, and I love, but I don't necessarily thrive from like big crowds or big groups or things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, I mean, I'm one of 5 kids, the youngest of 5. And we always, interaction was always super important. I mean, I was raised by not strict parents, but parents who would shut the TV off if I was watching TV for more than an hour or whatever, just to kind of keep that social engagement. Yeah, that balance. So yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And then I think the other part of it is, like you said, it's kind of like a drug. Once you've been exposed to that, like the beauty that can come out of like a really special community, you crave it. Like you gotta have it. So I think if you haven't experienced that, or you haven't been around that type of environment, then you kind of don't know what you are not getting, or you don't know what you don't know about it. So
I can relate to that, because before I was in coffee, I was in the corporate world. I was a project manager and senior business analyst for IBM. And, I did that because I had this degree that made me think like, I have to go get an office job. And I was raised by strict parents, and strict Arab parents who didn't think it was okay for me to work in hospitality. It was actually demoralizing, and it was seen as something that was shameful in our family to do. So I go into the corporate world, and I realized for a very long time, like I kept trying to fit in, and I kept trying to like make this corporate way work for me. And after 10 years, it wasn't working. And so I end up coming into the coffee world. And I've only ever worked in specialty coffee. Specialty coffee was starting to take off in Sydney right when I entered, and I had never, ever even bussed a table, let alone done espresso.
Yeah.
But hospitality is an integral, essential part of the Arab culture. We are taught from little children how to be hospitable. There are etiquettes in the way that you treat guests that come to your house, and there's protocols and all that kind of thing. It's a really beautiful part of the culture. So I get into the cafe, and I just couldn't believe that people get paid to do this. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I remember going home and saying to my husband, I'm like, I can't believe that people are giving me money to socialize and drink coffee all day. This is the best job in the world.
Right.
And
right.
then the best part about it is, after you finish cleaning every day and you've closed the door, there's no emails to answer. You don't have to go home and do emails. I was doing emails till fucking midnight with my corporate job.
Oh my gosh.
But after this, I was going home and sitting in my studio and recording music all night. It was amazing. And I get to talk to people and get to know about them. And I've got coworkers that love their job and enjoy their job. I didn't experience any of that in the corporate world.
Yeah.
You come into this environment and people are excited to see you, especially because you're doing what you do well, and you're excited to see them.
Yeah.
And so it's a win-win for everyone. I got really excited about it every single day.
That's one of the I think that nails it about what it is about hospitality. I mean, it's with coffee, it's easier because people are interested in coffee now. People are, like we'll have people walking through the roastery and kind of looking at stuff, and we'll start talking to them, and then it'll lead to, what kind of coffees do you like? Well, I've really only had dark roast, or I've really only had medium roast, or whatever. And And then, I mean, pretty frequently we'll just look up and we're an hour and a half with somebody tasting coffees. And I mean, that's what it's all about for us. And it's like, I don't know, for me, it's just so much fun. And just to engage on that level, like even in produce, like we would just walk around and offer people samples of fruit, and talk about, what this is and what this kind of apple is and why it's different than all these other 8 different kind of apples we sell. And, when the peak seasons for them are and where they're grown. And like, it's just, people are interested in a lot of things that they don't know that they're interested about. And I think that's one of the things that I love about hospitality is you could put me almost anywhere, and whether it's serving wine in a swanky restaurant or, serving coffee behind a bar, or buying coffee and roasting it, or working in produce or whatever. People are always looking for ways to engage, and kind of looking for ways to connect, learn things, pick up on different experiences that other people have had. So yeah, it never gets old.
Do you think that it's an art form that I think I think that this is what it is, but do you think that people are trying to get back to simpler things in life? Life is so complicated and intense and stressful now that perhaps people want to talk about the salt of the earth again.
Yeah. I think so. And I don't know how many, like I feel that for sure, but I don't know if I've thought that. So I don't know that. I think a lot of people probably want that without knowing that they want it. We were so inundated in like the mid to late 2000s with everything was about me. I mean, you had iPhones and I whatever, and everything was I and everything was me, and everything was so taking yourself out of this
disconnection,
enormous world with, this beautiful world with beautiful people all around you and beautiful experiences, and turning it all internally and putting on headphones and looking down at a screen or whatever. And I think we're now starting to realize, I mean, even in the industry, I think, the turn, not that it's a groundbreaking recent trend, but the trend away from like the obsession with pour overs and brew bars back into like, hey, we can get great coffee from a Fetco. Like really great coffee, and it's actually a lot more convenient and more cost effective. And so I think we are probably moving towards a simpler time, which I'm all for.
Yeah, I think what I'm noticing anyway is that people are hungry to connect.
Yeah.
And when in Map It Forward, like I'm in the process of writing this book, and in considering the place that automation is going to play in the roastery and in cafes, the thing that I'm contemplating is, are we going to continue to get more disconnected, and what role will the cafe play in people's thirst and hunger for connection? Because I'm not convinced that people are going to want to see that go away. 12 months ago, I was convinced that cafes were going to be run with one person. Now what I think is going to happen, the more I ponder on it, and the more that I see people desperate to connect. I go for a gratitude walk every morning, and I'm starting to see people hungry for you to say good morning to them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People as an immigrant to this country or an expat into this country, I get it. When I'm in Sydney, I know loads of people, but here I don't. And I've only been here 3 years. But the idea of connection with just people in your neighborhood is so foreign now, Yeah. And so when I'm on my walks every morning, and it's always the same people every day, and people, I heard this old couple when, I was walking past them this morning, and I went, "Oh, good morning." And he turned around and he said to her, "See, it's not dead. There are people who still want to say good morning." And I thought, wow, like imagine the life that they've seen and the transition of culture that they've seen. And I think cafes are going to play into the future. I know right now cafes seem to be a place, particularly here in America, where people go and spend time on their laptops. But I think that it's a guise because people can sit in their homes and spend time on their laptops. I think that they want to go somewhere where they can at least pretend that they're there to work, but what they're really there for is to be around other people.
Yeah. We're kind of awkward about it, right? Because we've gotten so far away from like normal human interaction or what is like natural, that it can be hard to like, for a lot of people to strike up a conversation in an elevator. Like it's weird. It's
and just
awkward.
Say hello.
And just say hello. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are wanting that. And I feel like a lot of people don't know how to, or don't know if it's cool or not with the other person or whatever. So one of the things that we are really aiming for, and one of our goals for 2019 is to really figure out across our 9 Kansas City cafes how to make somebody feel like they're a guest in your home when they walk into the cafe. So I think it's, and not necessarily like I think the industry in general has moved away from like the pretentious stuck-up baristas that we saw.
Oh, I don't know about that.
10 to 15 years, at least locally.
Maybe in Kansas City.
At least locally. Or at least for the most part, like it's at least not cool here to be like that.
Okay.
Not to say that nobody is, but
not at the Roasterie anyway.
But yeah, I mean, Kansas City really, I mean, it's Kansas City is like the Midwest of the Midwest of the Midwest in terms of like friendliness, and all sorts of people will say hello walking down the street, but then like to have anything beyond that can be clunky and weird. And but yeah, I think what people really want, like that connection that people want, that's really what we're trying to figure out a way to unlock in our cafes, because that's, I think, in large part, it still feels like when you walk into an average cafe, it still feels like it kind of revolves around the bar, which it shouldn't. It should revolve around the people walking through the doors and sitting at the tables. So we're trying to figure out how to orient the cafe to revolve around really taking the focus out from behind the bar and out to the tables or out to the patios where people are sitting and enjoying. And not everybody wants to, have a 2-hour conversation, but some people do. And it's not a waste of labor dollars to sit there and have a 2-hour conversation with a guest. That's money very well spent, because I don't know. I think of it as, and not just that you're building value towards the brand or towards your cafe for that person, but you're really taking that extra step towards establishing a culture that's going to make the city a better place and going to make living with all of these people a better experience. So
do you guys as a company see that you would essentially assign staff that were, Matt Perger uses the word a coffee concierge, a coffee concierge. And so the way he sees it is that as automation comes in, you would have somebody who is purely there. The machines do all the coffee making, but the people are the ones that stimulate connection. And it sounds similar to, I mean, if we take away the automation from the equation, you'll still have baristas and whatnot that are working on that. But there will be staff who are well-versed in the art of conversation, or are taught in that way how to have conversation, and pretty much in amongst your guests having conversations. Is that what you guys are looking at doing?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think the idea that we have is just creating a kind of changing the mindset. like I mean, it's a little bit like ingrained into me just because the company that I worked for throughout high school and college, Hy-Vee, the grocery store, I mean, that their slogan is a helpful smile in every aisle. And they just will fucking drill it into you. Like, you do not pass by someone. Exactly. Yeah. You don't walk by someone without smiling, and like in a really helpful way, not like they're always yelling at you or whatever, but it's just like constant coaching. It never lets up to where it just becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, you enjoy it also. So it's not like you're, putting in all of this exhausting work to smile at people. It becomes natural, and because I think it really is natural. I think we're kind of wired to connect with one another that way, and we've done all of this work to get away from that. So yeah, I think it's really just kind of a mindset change, or a change of habit in the way that we're thinking to, come back to, we're here for each other, we're here for other people, we're here to serve. And service isn't just handing somebody a beverage in a cup, it's living with them, it's interacting with them, engaging with them.
I was listening to this podcast on Trader Joe's earlier this week. And did you know that Trader Joe's is actually owned by Aldi?
I did, yeah. It's fascinating.
And it's fucking, if anyone wants to know how interesting this company is, it is so interesting. So it was started in Pasadena by a guy by the name of Joe, and he's now dead. But one of the brothers from Aldi bought it, and he changed a lot of the way that the company would operate based on something you were talking about with that is similar to the company you were working for. So where most supermarkets stack their shelves at night, Trader Joe's does not let their staff work stacking shelves outside of opening hours. And the reason they do that is because then you are able to use your staff as customer service people that are there engaging with people, and they are trained to look for customers that they can start conversations with.
Yeah.
And it's a deliberate part of the marketing so that customers always feel that there are people there supporting their needs. I mean, who better to talk to them about the wine and the peanut butter filled pretzels and all of that kind of stuff than the people who are stocking the shelves with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just really fascinating and interesting to see how they've been able to cultivate. They have per square foot something like they earn 40% more than any other grocery store.
Wow.
40%. Like this person who's coming second out of Ralph's and Albertsons and all of those kinds of people, the second is that much further behind from Aldi. Not Aldi, what are they called? The Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's, yeah.
And they only have 500 stores in the country.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think in hospitality too, like when the person hosting provides that like engagement and that friendliness, and it's so much like, I mean, we were talking about how sometimes we don't know how to interact with people. We don't know what's socially appropriate, or someone's going to look at us like we're a dumbass if we ask them a question in the elevator.
Yeah.
What did you do today? But
your espresso machine, that's your field, right?
Hosting does it. It totally lets the guard down, and the guest knows that, oh, okay, this is cool. This is what the expectation is. And so hospitality can facilitate that connection and that engagement in a really unique and special and fun way.
So many of the baristas I know are completely socially inept when there's no espresso machine there.
Yeah.
Like you get them away from the espresso machine, they have no idea how to have a conversation. You put them at an espresso machine, they're a fucking rock star.
Right.
They are completely performing in front of a room filled with people, and they're masters of their trade. It's like this safety net that the espresso machine plays for them.
Yeah.
And they are on fire, absolutely on fire. But then you get them where they have to have a conversation with just one-on-one and there's no espresso machine, completely socially inept and unable to hold a relevant conversation.
Yeah. We use different things to we always try to identify the people that are really, really good at connection, and really good socially. Because how
do you do that?
We do it we do a few different things. One, we do 5 public cuppings a month. So we do one every week here at our factory location. We do them on Thursday nights. And then we do one at one of our cafes down in Lenexa, which is down south on the Kansas side of the state line. And so it's always interesting to see like the people who really love coffee and ask questions about coffee, to put them, train them how to lead a public cupping, and then put them in that context and see if they have that social part of it, which I think that can always be trained if the person wants it and realizes the value of it. I don't think that it's something that you either have or you don't. For some people, it's natural. I mean, some people are just born as tour guides and are born as but like for me, that's something that I definitely learned in my work experience. So yeah, we'll do that. We also do things that we call tour experiences. So we have our tour program. We do 2 factory tours every weekday, 10:30 and 12:30, and we'll have somewhere between 15 and 30 people on each of them. And then we do
say that again. You do it twice a day.
Yeah.
And you have
on Saturday we have 4, and Sundays we have 5.
And okay, I'm shocked by that. So you do 2 factory tours a day, and in each of those sessions you have 15 thereabouts people that want to tour.
Probably an average of 20 people. So some of them we have 3 or 4 people. Some of them we have, I think we cap them at 32. Yeah, we've been doing tours since Danny started the company in October or November of '93, and his first tour was like January of '94, and he's done them like at least once a week ever since.
But it's mostly every day.
Now we do them every single day. Yeah.
That's impressive, dude.
Yeah. So during like the holiday seasons, we do like 4 every weekday and then load up the weekends.
And so what's a factory tour include? Like, this is our loring and this is our bigger loring. And
so we'll talk about company history. They'll watch some videos, and a tour guide will kind of walk them through the history of the company, how we got started, what led us to start, the things that are really at the core of the business. Finding the best coffees that we can find in the world, paying good prices for them, developing long-term relationships in the supply chain, handling the coffee as best as we possibly can, and then getting them to the customers as fast as we possibly can. So we'll kind of talk about each of those components, and then they'll watch videos that are really beautifully shot by a company in Kansas City called Big Media that we love, of the roasting process and the blending process, the cold brew process, just a whole bunch of different kind of aspects of the operation. And then they'll walk out onto the factory floor and kind of do a horseshoe kind of around the operation, and they'll stop at each station. So in one station it's like a history station. They have artifacts of the first grinders that we used, and the first bag sealer that we had was just a hot clothes iron that we would just seal bags with, some sort of a homemade fabricated sample roaster made out of like a hot air gun with a funnel and some duct tape.
Amazing.
Just some of that fun stuff that we kind of have on display. We have our original 12-pound baby civets roaster in the factory as a tour piece, sitting right beside the lourings, which is a fun contrast. And then they'll go through, where we buy coffee from, a little bit about coffee production and coffee processing. They'll talk a little bit about roasting, our roasting process, air roasting, which has been key to the company since '93. And then they'll end the tour with in front of our cold brew room, which is a big room with a canning line and beautiful stainless steel brewing equipment, in front of a big glass wall that looks into it. And they'll do a tasting of our cold brew and nitro on tap. And then after that, they'll go to like a brew demonstration area, and the tour guide will lead them through brewing the same coffee on a French press and on a Chemex, and they'll talk about how they're brewing it and the equipment that they're using, and the different variables of brewing. And then they'll sample it out and have people taste them side by side and talk about which one's different, which ones they like best, if they like the French press better, which coffees would pair well with that brewing device, and vice versa. So we do those, and then we also do things we call tour experiences, which are more focused tours. We have one on roasting, where someone can come in. They're usually groups of 4 to 6, and they'll come in and actually do like a hands-on roast of a coffee.
Oh, wow.
And we'll get right up on the machine and talk to them about the machine, talk to them about, why we use Loring's and why we love them, and the things that how we build a roast profile and our QA practices to maintain roast profiles. And then they'll roast a coffee, and kind of as it's roasting, the Loring's have a screen on the computer screen on the roaster that maps the roast curve as it's running. So we'll kind of talk at each phase of the roast, pull samples and smell it, and talk about what's happening in the coffee in terms of development and whatnot. And at the end of it, they'll do a tasting. And usually on the roasting one, we'll do like a progressive tasting of roast levels. So we'll do like the same coffee, roasted light, medium, and dark. And then they'll taste them all and talk about what they like and what they don't care for as much. And so we do those. We do one that's like a hands-on with like espresso and milk steaming, which is fun for people that have never had experience behind the bar. They've been on the other side of the bar thousands of times, but to get behind the bar and kind of see how it all works together is cool. And
your
then
phone's blowing up, dude. I feel like
it is.
Do you want to put it on silence, or just check that?
It's probably my family going nuts about the Chiefs game tomorroar.
Oh, so okay. That's probably I'm assuming that's a football thing, is it?
Yeah, it's a football thing. Yeah.
Is that a group text?
It is, yeah. It's just nonstop. It never ends.
America.
That's right. But yeah, we have all sorts of those. We do one where they get behind the bar and kind of learn what it takes to be a barista and what all goes into it. Excuse me.
Given that you guys have 9 cafes, do you still have wholesale accounts that sell the Roasterie coffee in Kansas City, sorry?
We do, yeah, on both sides we have about 400 or so accounts. We do a lot of that in grocery. So we sell to about 70 or so grocery stores. And then a lot of restaurants, some hotels.
Take a sip of water, dude.
Excuse me.
I got to say, you're recovering from a week filled with press. Because,
I am, yeah.
For anyone that's listening, Craig has done a monster job this week of dealing with press interview after press interview after press interview, thanks to the release of their CBD Cold Beer.
That's right.
Yeah, which, we're going to talk about eventually. We may as well talk about it now since you're choking.
Might as well. Might as well. That's perfect. Yeah, so I just gotten over a gnarly cold last week. I'm good for about one of those every 3 years or so. Just gotten over it, and the infamous last couple of days of a cold are like where it's all the drainage is happening and your throat's scratchy and you're coughing a bunch.
Yeah.
And we're right on the tail end of that. We had released our CBD infused cold brew the previous week, and had gotten some pretty good traffic on it. But we made a social media post on Monday, and it just, like, the attention blew up. We got coverage from all of the local news stations in town and some newspapers and some online blogs and all sorts of stuff. So it was a lot of talking on those last couple of days after getting over a cold, and I pretty much lost my voice. But yeah, it's been a fun week.
So tell us about the CBD Cold Brew.
So it's a 8-ounce cold brew. We do cold brew and nitro in both cans and kegs. Have for a couple of years.
What coffees are you using for this?
So they're very similar blends. The cold brew uses a 2 different roast levels of a Brazil and then a Colombia and a Kenya.
The same Brazil?
Yeah, the same Brazil. And then the nitro uses the same blend, but instead of the Colombia, it's a Mexican component.
Okay.
So they're medium-ish roasts, aggregate, so different roast levels, but it comes out to about a medium blend. So the CBD infused cold brew is our standard cold brew blend, which is really full-bodied. It's very mild, creamy, chocolatey, caramel. It tastes a lot of Tootsie Roll. And it has a 10 milligram dose of CBD added to it from a company called American Shaman, who's a local manufacturer of CBD.
Are you using CBD in the oil form or in the isolate form? Or
so it's a water soluble oil. So they have
that sounds so much of an oxymoron.
Yeah, so they've basically taken a CBD oil and through insane technology that I can't even begin to understand, have broken down the particle size to where it's small enough that it'll dissolve in pretty much any liquid you'll put it into.
Yeah, wow.
So it's small enough that, like, as you take the oil orally, like, it'll sink through the pores in your tongue. Incredibly tiny. So it's smaller than, like, it's about the size of like a virus. Incredibly small. So it's smaller than the smallest bacteria.
And are you infusing it? So you take the 10 milligrams, infuse it into the nitro, and then do you hot fill? Is it going into glass bottles or is it going into cans?
It goes into cans. So the entire process is cold. So we use cold water. Everything, it stays under 40 degrees for the entire life of the beverage. So we use cold water. That's
to maintain the integrity of the CBD?
No, well, that's what we do for our entire cold brew line.
Okay.
Because we do not use any type of preservatives or chemicals. Yep. We don't do any treatment. So there's no high pressure pasteurization or retort or anything like that. So it has to stay cold. And doing that, we get a 6-month shelf life without compromising the flavor with like a acidification or something like that.
Yeah.
So the CBD is added after the brewing process. So we brew, it's a toddy style brew. So we brew in a concentrate and then dilute with water to make it ready to drink. And yeah, the CBD is added in between the draining of the concentrate and putting it in a can.
Wow. And what effects have you noticed? For you, because I know that there's an issue, especially here in California, you cannot combine, and they're still trying to navigate this. You cannot combine any cannabis products with coffee or with any caffeine product legally. I know that there are a bunch of companies that are doing it, but because they're still going through the process of legislating, they don't know how to tell people to stop it. So the way people are working their way around that is, well, if I get caught and I'm only using CBD, then I'm fine. So as long as it's not full spectrum CBD, which has elements of THC in it, they're going to get they're going to be fine with it. Are you guys using a full spectrum CBD?
We are, and there's been a company in Kansas City that's unfortunately gotten shut down a couple of times trying to launch a cocktail using CBD, which is a no-no in Missouri. So
because of the alcohol and
because of the alcohol, yeah. You can't adulterate the alcohol. I'm not sure if it's with something that's considered a drug,
class 1 narcotic.
Whether it's so in coffee, there's no issue with it. You just can't mix it with alcohols. So yeah, so it's been incredibly well received.
I imagine.
Yeah, it's like we were kind of expecting it to start like get a pretty good bump initially, but then kind of start slow, and over time, like throughout the summer, really pick up steam.
Did you sell out?
It was from day one. We sold out for like 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had initially produced like 1,000 cans or so, and we sold like, God, we probably sold 600 or 700 cans in like the 3-day period after we started getting all the press from it. So as soon as we started seeing like 6-packs fly off the shelf, we threw another batch in there, and of course it's cold brew, so it takes 19 hours to brew, so it's not something you can just turn around and put on the shelf.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I know you do.
I know more than anyone on that one.
I know you do.
People who are like, I want my elixir. Can I have my elixir by tomorrow? I placed my order today. Can you overnight it to me? I'm like,
sure. Can you order it yesterday?
To order. But with our new whole 12-month shelf life thing, we've been able to change that. It just became essential for us.
Yeah, congratulations on that, by the way. That's
Thanks,
huge.
dude.
Huge.
Yeah, it's massive for us.
It's really exciting.
It means that our production is just more control in the sense of the time. We can concentrate it at a certain part of the month, and we can forecast much better. And as we grow, we can manage all of that, because we're still growing through the winter and gearing up for what's going to be our biggest summer. So, and the reasons I'm asking about the CBD is because we're waiting for the laws here to kind of like chill and find their way, so that we can start adding CBD to elixir and release what we're calling our white label elixir, which is going to be our CBD version of that.
Awesome.
It's just, you don't know where it's all going to fall, because it's still a class 1 narcotic federally.
Yeah.
And so at any time they could turn around and say, actually, it's federally illegal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a lot trickier for you because you're shipping to how many countries and all 50 states.
Oh, we won't let it to California.
Yeah.
With that one, we will only sell it in California.
That's where it gets really tricky, and it's I mean, it takes so much work even just to do everything that you have to do to figure out whether or not you can
and how you
ship to a state, and how you have to do it, and having all the paperwork filled out, and making sure you've talked to the right people that aren't gonna pull it on the shelves and try to exactly. So
here in LAX now, I mean, it's all shifting so quickly, because at LAX you're allowed to have, I can't remember how much it's, I think you're allowed 3 ounces or something. You're allowed to get on a plane at LAX with that much marijuana on you.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's, LAX will let you board a plane with marijuana on you, but they take no responsibility for what's going to happen to you at the other end.
Gosh.
I mean, that's how quickly everything's moving
wild.
Here. It's and they're saying to you, like, we're not going to stop you. You're allowed to do that now.
Wow.
But then whose responsibility is it on the other end? Because you're not allowed to smoke the shit on the plane. Like, you can't use a weed vape pen on a plane. You're just not allowed to. So you're either taking it to smoke it on the other end, but you don't want to get off a plane in Thailand with that shit on you.
No, you don't.
You just
that's So with the CBD stuff, I mean, we started talking about this maybe like a year and a half ago, and even just in the year, I mean, we knew nothing about CBD a year and a half ago, and even just in the last 4 or 5, like, I think if we launched this product in October, it probably would do exactly what we thought it was going to do early on, which, starting pretty slow, and then as people become more aware of what CBD is and more people get exposed to it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't think I've ever seen anything pick up steam the way that CBD, at least in our market, the way that CBD is. It's crazy how quickly it's becoming mainstream, and
who were the kind of people that were buying it? I mean, I don't know if you guys have the same kind of stoners that seem to be like every second person here is a massive stoner that spends all their time at the beach. Like it's San Diego.
We have a lot of stoners, but
okay.
But primarily, I mean, the reason that we got into it in the first place, we had a friend have a friend that works with military veterans, and kind of helping them to establish themselves after coming back
PTSD.
to the States. And exactly. And one of the things he does is educate them and expose them to CBD for exactly PTSD, anxiety, depression.
There's no greater
even chronic pain.
There is no greater substance that is a silver bullet for all of that shit. Than CBD.
So I mean, we've seen. I mean, since we started, talking about and thinking about and researching and learning and all that stuff about CBD, we've even realized a lot of people that we, friends and family that have been using CBD for a while, that
everyone comes out of the woodwork.
Everyone comes out of the woodwork. So
because you've legitimized it now, especially. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So people with, anything from anxiety and depression to joint pain to dementia, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, Parkinson's. I mean, it's so that's really what made us want to do it, is because we saw people, with degenerative brain disorders that this was helping, or people with PTSD from past trauma or from so that's really what kind of kicked us in the ass to go after this, and the kind of people that we knew it was serving. And then also there's not, I mean, in Kansas City, I think there have been a few products with CBD launched, but for the most part people are consuming it just as CBD. There hasn't been a lot locally that's been put out there that really gives people an excuse to consume something else that they already love and also get the benefit of CBD as well.
And the thing is, I feel like what we're going through, especially here in California, is we're going through a transition from like ultra hippies who have a kush store that like it's not really high grade stuff. It's not super clean stuff. We've transitioning from that version of, all the weed that's available to these super high-tech labs that are being run by ex-corporate people who either have kids who have got epilepsy that they were never able to get access to clean enough CBD or THC or like full spectrum of all of the cannabinoids. That's the kinds of qualities that you're getting. And so people are looking to find more reputable dealers, for lack of a better word, reputable suppliers. Like the Roasterie has a great reputation. And so if the Roasterie is selling something that's got CBD in it, I'm going to be more likely to go and buy my supply of CBD through you, because I know that you only release the highest quality of stuff that you can get access to. And you've already done the work for me. And I feel like what we're going to start seeing a lot more as every state starts to legalize it is it legal in Missouri?
Yeah, it is.
Like THC, the whole
medical just got passed.
Okay.
So CBD is full spectrum CBD is, and then medical just got passed. So we're still working
a little ways
whatever,
away from recreational.
Away, yeah.
I mean, I feel like, I know for sure people walking around the streets here smoking it. So it's so open here that it's going to lead to a whole bunch of interesting flow-on effects. I think we're going to have to see what happens with all of that. But it's Missouri. Like, I never thought that it would be cool to just walk into a cafe in somewhere like Missouri and be like, can I have some weed coffee, please?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's cool. It's great. It's progressive. it allows us to give access to these really essential medicines to people who need it. You know, veterans need access to this stuff. Older people need access to this stuff where it's not taboo. Cancer patients, kids with epilepsy, like adults with epilepsy, they need to have a mechanism to get access to these kinds of plant medicine that are reputable and that are safe, you know. I'm not someone that smokes any weed at all. I'm terrible on the shit. I'm just hilarious. Yes. Like I turn into this person who's like, oh my God, we're in a movie. And I can't stop talking. And then I see dragons and all this kind of shit. I'm too terrified to eat edibles because if that's what I'm like when I smoke a joint, holy shit. If I have an edible, and knowing me, I'll just sit there and start eating a bag of gummy bears when I should probably just eat the foot of one gummy bear. And out here, like the amount of fucking THC that they've got in these edibles is astronomical. Absolutely, like 1,000 milligrams in a chocolate bar.
Yeah, that's insane.
For anyone who doesn't know, 1,000 milligrams is going to put you into a hole for a month. It is going to bury you so deep within your demons, you are fucked up. So for me, having the foot of a gummy bear is going to bury me because I'm like super clean. I don't do anything. I don't drink. I don't do any drugs or anything. But I would just sit there and just start eating gummy bears and I'd be fucked. Like completely gone. It's terrible news for me. So I've limited it in the idea of like, if we do this, which we probably will, it will just be CBD because I do not need to be getting fucked up on my own supply.
Yeah. No way. No way.
How have the staff found it in talking about it? Has it been something that's really exciting for them to be talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's been something that everybody feels good about. Not only are, you know, we able to provide it to people that are already using CBD, and it's been, you know, a game changer for. But I think it's also, I mean, one of the things that I'm so excited about is because it, like a coffee company putting out a CBD product is going to put that in front of so many more people than just the people that are going to wander into a CBD store, or the people that know somebody that's used CBD and has, you know, it's worked for, and then the traveling word of mouth, or people don't generally accidentally walk into CBD stores. Like, you kind of got to know what it is. Even before you start seeing it, like we had no idea that there were 20 plus CBD stores in Kansas City before we started talking about and learning about it. And
well, they try to be inconspicuous, don't they?
Not really in Kansas City. They're really in a hard push to educate and get people to understand what it is and why it's important. And yeah, I mean, they're really positioning themselves as like a healthy and sustainable alternative to some of the other drugs that can help with things like,
well, they absolutely
PTSD
are,
or whatever. Yeah, totally.
It really does legitimize it and remove the taboo that used to exist around some of these things, because it really is such an important medicine for people who do suffer from these really debilitating anxiety disorders and things like that. And you want to be able to send people to that kind of medicine than opioids and you know, all the other shitty drugs that are out there that keep getting prescribed to them that they end up getting addicted to. Yeah,
for sure. So it's been great for us. And yeah, it's been a great kind of partnership as well. Cause I mean, we're as much as we possibly can. We'll still, obviously we'll sell you a vanilla latte with all sorts of sugar in it if that's what you want, because we're a service company. We want you to enjoy what you love to drink.
Yeah.
But as much as we can, we try to push, and the stuff that we're really marketing and pushing is like our cold brew with 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 dairy. And we've also been, you know, looking for and developing new naturally flavored products. So we're doing canning line extension here in March that's going to line out 3 new flavored coffees that are all naturally flavored. So like one of them, we'll call it a dark chocolate raspberry flavor, chocolate covered raspberry or something along those lines. And it tastes like a really sweet drink. You would definitely think that there's calories and sugar in it, but it's totally a clean label product.
Yeah. How are you flavoring? Can you say?
Some of them are flavored with, like we have one that's flavored with hops. We have one that's flavored with lavender. So yeah, just different natural things. I mean, we basically just go into like natural grocery stores and just raid the shelf and try as many different ways to incorporate that into the cold brew as we possibly can. And then I always say we try like 150 things that suck before we find anything that's halfway decent and worth pursuing. And then things that are worth pursuing, the things that are worth pursuing, you have like 10% of them that actually stick.
Right.
So yeah, we'll just take everything that we can find that's not going to add sugars or calories or whatever to the beverage and see what we can come up with. And then we also do just fun things that, I mean, like whiskey barrel aged coffees, or we did a wine infused coffee, things like that are just fun ways to incorporate different flavors or new flavors to what people are used to without, adding a bunch of nasty stuff to it.
Yeah, that's cool. You mentioned 0 calorie cold brew.
Mm-hmm.
How are you getting it to 0 calories?
Did
you see our bottles?
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of cold brews out there that will claim like 5 calories, and I've seen a lot that claim 0. So I'm actually not totally sure, but we've had it tested at food science labs, and it always comes back 0
I bet you I could tell you how you do that, because ours is about to go to 0 calories.
Really?
So we have 5 calories in Elixir. And funnily enough, those calories, we obviously had it sent and the nutritional panel done. And where those calories come from is the coffee oils. And so you'll notice that pretty much every cold brew that you drink, when you look at it, has the oil sitting on top. I've done this experiment all over the world. I always go order a cold brew, never drink it, hate the shit. But there's the film that sits over the top of it, and that's even after filtering. So if you double filter your cold brew after it's finished, you can actually remove all the oils, but you're going to need to double filter that, because the oils can seep through the filters of a toddy bag. But if you filter it a second time through a toddy bag or some sort of a filtration process, you'll pretty much catch all of it. But anyone that's got 0 on their cold brew bottles, I'm always like, I wonder if they actually got it tested or just assumed that because it's just coffee that there are no calories, because there actually are calories in there unless you go and work really hard to remove the oils from there, because that's the only place that it comes from, unless you're adding milk or you're adding sugar. A lot of people add sugar to their cold brews to formulate, like to work as a preservative.
That's interesting. I didn't know, just because the first stuff that we turned into, and we've gone through hundreds of different recipes to try to accomplish different things with the cold brew line. But the first stuff we submitted and everything after came out 0 cold brew. So that probably is it. And I'm sure it has something to do with roast style too, and how fresh the coffee is as you're brewing. I mean, all that, there's all sorts of things that contribute to oils coming through in the coffee, but 100%. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting.
And the water temperature that you're using and all of that, and how you're getting your vessels ready that you're going to be filling into, and how you feel, and are you hot filling, are you cold filling, all of that affects the number of calories that are going in there, even if you're not adding any preservatives or as in sugar to something like. It's super interesting though, no?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is.
Like
I love it.
It's I know, right? I often think like, you're a weirdo, Lee, because this is the shit that you love having conversations about. But my background is science. Like, this is the stuff that turns my mind on.
Yeah, our background is totally not science, but we're like, I mean, it's just, we love the process of developing products or developing new recipes or whatever. I mean, we just all of the testing and tweaking one variable and trying it 20 different ways, and then tweaking another variable and trying it 20 different ways. Yeah, that stuff's just fascinating and interesting, and there's never something that you never run out of things to learn, and really in anything, but especially in coffee.
Oh yeah, it's evolving so much every year, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So we're always looking for ways to expand our knowledge and learn new things or different perspectives, and play with things. And
I mean, this year, right now, the cool hot things are fermentation in processing, and pink bourbons and orange bourbons, and like all these really weird intermediary processing methods that are really exciting for people.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I think it's a cross between a weird time and an exciting time for coffee, particularly for producers. I hope we don't fuck it up with regards to the supply chain and the sustainability of that. And I mean, what's you as a green buyer, what's your take on the way that you approach green buying? I know you're about to go to Costa Rica, right?
Yeah, next week we'll be in Costa Rica for a couple of weeks. Yeah, so for me, I mean, buying is all about relationships. So we always buy the best coffees that we can find, that fit the flavor profile that we're looking for, which really is what our guests are looking for. And we are really very diligent about in our processes of identifying that coffee. So we might go through, several dozen different lots of coffee before we identify the one that is the perfect fit for us. And even within that, I mean, there's so many good people in coffee. There's so many good people in the industry. So we really, I mean, there's like a core group of, producers, exporters, importers that we work with regularly. And there's kind of another group that we love to death, and maybe haven't found products to work on with for the last year or two, but are always looking for something. So they're always on the cupping table. They're always present. They're always involved. And then there's just always, we never run out of people that we love and trust and want to do business with, want to work with, want to support.
Can I interrupt you there for a second? Yeah. I hope you realize that feeling is mutual, because it was an absolute pleasure to do business with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
From the point of the perspective of our team, it was an absolute pleasure to deal with the roastery. And it was fun, and it was so refreshing to see you, particularly Craig, put in all of this effort to want to get this right. And you really did. Like, we went through a fuck ton of backwards and forwards, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
But I'm so proud of the result that we came up with. I'm so proud of the fact that we just persevered, and I'm excited about the opportunity that we get to do it again.
Yeah, me too. That's where all the fun is for me. Like if we just knocked everything out of the park that we tried on the first time, like that, there's no experience in that. There's no adventure in that. There's no development in that. And like, that's where all the fun comes in. And then with that, we've had producers or people in the supply chain that we've worked with and, had quality concerns that we've worked through, and it never, ever makes me want to not work with that person again.
Yeah.
Unless it's unless they've handled it poorly. Like as long as somebody is, understands that, kind of is on the same page about what it's going to take to get it right, and has that perseverance and determination to get there. That's what it's all about. And it's it's similar to what we talked about, like at the cafe level, with just that engagement, and just the social interaction. I mean, it's kind of some of the same stuff translated into the supply chain, or I guess on the back end. But yeah, I mean, we from our green coffee supply chain all the way to our wholesale customers, the people that frequent our cafe as guests, and then people that we just happen to come across in the industry, like yourself, or a whole other number of people. Like there's way too many awesome people, and people that are fun to work with and care about doing an excellent job and care about developing the industry and the community. There's way too many of those people out there to do business with other people a second time for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it's not that we're coming across, people that aren't that way a lot either. So yeah,
there are a plethora of assholes in the industry too.
Maybe after 25 years, we've learned the art of
staying
away from them, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, but there are a lot of people. For as many people as there are that you want to do business with, the reason that those people exist is because they've learned how to be that way because of the people that you just do not want to do business with.
Yeah. And I've been so incredibly fortunate. So I've been buying for almost 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have come into an environment where I'm working with, some of the people that we're sourcing coffee through and buying coffee from are people that have been SCA presidents and people that have been.
Oh, you're working with Tracy?
Working with Steve Colton.
Oh, Steve Colton.
Yeah, we love Steve. But Marcelo Vieira, who was the guy who got Brazilian specialty coffee off the ground. We buy from his farm and have for 20 plus years.
Yeah, wow.
There's just so many people that were so foundational to the industry and to what we know, especially coffee, that just by being in this role, like I just have regular communication with and regularly work with. And all of those people, the other thing that's so special about the community and about our supply chain, all of those people are not interested in, promoting their work or themselves. Like they're all, I get calls from people who, they're importing coffee for us that sell hundreds of thousands of containers of coffee a year. And once a month, Steve Colton is this way at Atlantic. He'll call in and just say, hey, is there anything I can help with?
How great.
We do like 5 boxes a year with him. And he'll call regularly and just kind of try to be that mentor role, seeing someone young in the industry after he's been in the industry for, several decades. So yeah, that's
special.
It is. It's so special. And we have so many of those people in our supply chain, that really it comes down to that.
Craig, that's not by accident though, mate.
It's not. Yeah.
It's the reason that things like that happen is because you're good humans. It's just people want to do business with people who are good to do business with.
It's contagious.
It really is.
We talked about earlier. Yeah.
It's I know that I've got this reputation, particularly because we're very careful with who we do business with Elixir. And, I was having this conversation with a new Elixir dealer that is coming on board next week. And he said, I was really worried you were going to say no. And I said to him, look, I wish I could say yes to everybody. It's just that it's my job as the ship steerer of Elixir to make sure that we're doing business with all the great people.
Yeah.
And there are lots of really great operators out there. They just have to be great for all the touch points that's important to us. Like at the end of the day, we want to build a really positive supply chain. But if these are people who are supporting a coffee supply chain that deals with commodity coffee, I can't support that business. It's a fundamental no-no for us because we're trying to raise awareness about, sex trafficking on farms and slavery and all that kind of stuff. So you can be really great people, but you're not actually delivering on the fact that you're contributing and you're complicit in a really detrimental thing to our industry and our supply chain.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. I wish I could, trust me, from a money perspective, I fucking wish I could sell Elixir to everyone in the world, but I don't want to be contributing to to all of the nasty shit as well.
Yeah. And when you are able to position yourself in that environment around those types of people and you have that mindset, the other thing that is one of my favorite parts of the job is how easily others with similar values and similar mindsets will just, like Francisco and Diego Vizcaino and
aren't
Anna.
they amazing?
We have been talking to them for a couple of years and just have been looking for opportunities to work together. I just can't say enough good things about them, and their coffees and the way they do business and the way they operate, the way they treat each other, as far as I can tell, and the way that they've always treated us, even as somebody who's kind of always been in communication with them and has been around, but hasn't bought a significant amount of coffee from them at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's just that when you know, and you kind of are able to put yourself around enough of those truly good people, it becomes so much easier to recognize them when they come up and when you see them.
It was so great to get that email from you where you had told me that you were going to, after seeing them on the podcast, you were going to try and find a way to make it happen. Yeah. It was just, I'm very careful about who I associate myself and my brands with. It's something I've always been very deliberate about. And to start seeing people interact with those guys after hearing the conversation that they had on this podcast was just so heartfelt for me, because I'm so behind what they're doing. I'm such a big fan, even though I haven't met her yet, of their mother.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'm hell bent on meeting her in Boston this year. So
I'm so hoping I get to go to Boston this year, only because we've had something that we can't really talk about, which is absolutely amazing for Elixir, but the deal that we'll be signing for that, we may have to deliver it or start looking at the process for delivering right around the same time.
Of course.
As when Boston's on.
Of course.
Which, of course, it couldn't have been a month later.
Exactly.
And we have to be ready to go with it once all approvals are done from the other end. And it will be massive for us as a business. And I'll tell you about it off air. It's just we're not allowed to make it public yet. But it it's one of those things of I'm kind of got my fingers crossed that it's just going to happen 2 or 3 weeks after even, which means I can go and do a couple Map It Forward workshops while I'm over there, or I can just get on a plane and go there for 2 days and just catch up with everyone, because it'll be so nice to meet people face to face and be able to hug them and see you and meet not through a computer screen or over the phone. Just break bread and have a coffee. And a lot of these people have been on the podcast. Boston will be around about our first birthday for this podcast.
Awesome.
Which will be really exciting. Thanks. It's been a massive 2 years for Map It Forward and for Elixir, and it's going to be a big year moving forward for us as well, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. How many of the shows have you been to in the past?
This will be my 5th.
Okay.
Yeah, this will be my 5th, and I've not been to Boston ever before.
I haven't either. I'm looking forward to it.
So I've spent most of my time on the West Coast, and I feel like I'm going to cop a fuck ton of backlash about this, but I feel like people on the West Coast are a little bit laid back for my palate. Not a lot of hustle gets happening here.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy the feistiness of East Coasters and the grit and the hustle that comes with that. So I'm really hoping that I do get to go and spend some time in Boston.
Even though they might not like saying hello on the street as much.
No, I'm fine.
As they do on the West Coast.
Hey, let me tell you, I'm finding that with the way that culture is progressing now, I'm feeling like we've gone through this period of isolation and we're continuing to go through it. And I think that, people are scared of each other now.
Yeah.
And that may just be my observation of what's going on, but I'm a really observant people watcher, and I'm noticing that people want to connect, but they're scared to connect. and people don't know who they can trust anymore. Moving to this country has given me, like, I had trust issues before. I've got more massive trust issues with people, just because over here people are allowed to have guns. You know, people are allowed to do things here that people just take liberties here that it's just very foreign in Australia. Yeah. In Australia, men don't typically talk to women. You'd never get a man walking up to you and trying to chat you up or pick you up on the street. It just is never done in Australia. Yeah. Here, people just walk up to you and be really blatant about, like, talking to you about your body shape and saying all these things that would be completely inappropriate in Australia. And it's very disconcerting to somebody who doesn't come from a culture like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that people have closed themselves off quite a lot here. I've noticed in the 3 years that I've lived here that that's become something that's becoming more progressively the thing that's done, especially like in downtown areas and things like that. And we have a big homeless population here there's all over the West Coast. There's a huge homeless population on this side of the country that makes things interesting with regards to the way people interact with strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so encouraging though. I mean, again, just thinking about and talking about how just the kind of culture of the industry, it's so encouraging, even in the last year, 18 months.
Very much so.
How much the industry is mobilized to, do what we can to change that culture and really establish more of a culture of actually respecting people and not just acting like you're the only one in the world that matters and you can do whatever you want whenever you want, and kind of learning how to put ourselves and put each other, I guess, in our places and learn how to actually live with people appropriately.
You know what we're hearing a lot through Map It Forward, which is it's in fact coming through on the survey as well that we just released for roasters. We're finding that people would like education on how to communicate. A lot of people are telling us, can you put something out there that teaches us how to have conversations with people? Because people are coming into our industry not knowing what's appropriate with regards to conversation these days. And they're actually forcing themselves into the industry because they love coffee, but may not necessarily have the interpersonal skills to deal with people. And so what we're hearing a lot of through the workshops that we're doing, through the messages that we're getting, through the surveys that we're getting back from people, and this has been quite surprising to me, people are actually noticing that their anxiety is increasing because of their lack of ability to communicate effectively with people and deal with a lot of the social shifting that's going on. For example, with knowing how to use gender pronouns properly, knowing how to address situations of harassment that may be happening between customers. So if a customer is being harassed by another customer, or you can see a situation happening and that customer isn't quite comfortable being spoken to by another customer, the communication skills to deal with that is something that we're getting told a lot of are situations that people are uncomfortable or just simply not skilled in their ability to do. And that surprised me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it surprises me too. It's great that it's encouraging to know that. I'm interested to see what that content will look like. That's really fascinating.
We did with regards to the excuse me, with regards to the roaster survey that we just sent out. So the ebook is pretty much 80% written. And what I wanted to make sure the point of the survey was, like, let's capture all of this extra information that we want to know if you want to know about it or not. And so one of the questions in the survey is, have you ever had to deal with sexual harassment in the workplace? And then the second question is, would you know what to do if you observed sexual harassment in the workplace? And pretty much 90% of the surveys that are coming back are people saying, no, I have no idea what I'd do.
Wow.
And so, yes, it's fantastic that we operate in a community that is, it's super encouraging that we live in an industry that wants to be supportive of each other. I find that very encouraging.
Yeah.
We now have to be able to arm people with the skills of knowing what to do so that there's no passiveness that's existing moving forward. Another interesting thing, when we did the workshop in Sydney, the 3-day workshop last October, we had Dr. Jamie Berry, a neuropsychologist, come in and run a 2-hour session on mental health and assertiveness in the coffee industry. And it was by far everybody's favorite session of the 3 days.
Man, that's interesting.
Mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's kind of, now that we're talking about this, now that you're saying this, it makes sense, because a lot of the training and the things that we value in hospitality is knowing how to not be assertive negatively towards the guests, right? So knowing that, how to de-escalate, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're not being assertive, but how to handle customers that are rude, or how to handle customers that come in and immediately don't like you because of how you look or because of who you are or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there really needs to be a concentrated training on what the opposite of that looks like. Especially back of house on the team. But then for sure, like you were saying, if it's 2 customers or whatever, knowing how to handle the situations and deal with them.
The really exciting thing was that Jamie was able to show everyone in the room exactly what the difference between passive communication, aggressive communication, and assertive communication is. And so he used a seesaw as a visual aid. And he spoke to, people were just fixated on every word he was saying, because what he said is, like, he talked about, what it feels like if you're communicating in a passive way because you're self-sacrificing.
Mm-hmm.
And what it feels like if you're communicating in an aggressive way because you're walking all over everybody. One is you being walked all over and the other one is you doing all the walking over.
Yeah.
Assertive communication is something that people typically associate with aggression. But actually, assertive communication is where you're communicating in a sense where you say what you mean and you mean what you say. There's no veiled agenda going on, and you're communicating in a way that's fair to both you and to the person that's receiving the communication.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the fairness is probably the hardest part to recognize and kind of learn. Learning that it's fair to be talked to harshly.
Yeah.
If you're acting like an ass.
Especially these days where we're coming.
Learning that it's fair to accept that if you're acting like an ass as well.
Right. It's one of those things that we're coming now into an era where and there's a lot of literature being released on this and a lot of studies happening with psychologists right now in the area of grit. And I'm writing a lot about it in this book, in the sense that we are now facing generations in our industry that were raised by helicopter parents. And the reason that we're experiencing two things: people who are getting offended very easily because you're asking them to do their job. And on the other side, you have to praise them massively for pulling a fucking espresso shot. I'm hearing that again and again and again and again from people. Why do I have to high five every barista every time they pull an espresso shot? What we need to do is we need to be more compassionate about where these individuals have come from as an industry. And when you start to read the literature on what's happened with this, these individuals, a lot of them, it's a generation that haven't been taught the importance of grit. They haven't been taught the importance of, perseverance and passion for doing hard work. They haven't been taught how to play and fail. They're constantly praised for everything. It's really fascinating stuff, because what we're now getting is with the introduction of companies like Uber and Lyft, we've had a mass exodus of people from our industry, of people who are just doing it because it's a placeholder job. It's easier to go and drive Uber than it is to stand at an espresso machine, right? And you get paid so much fucking more to do it. So we're left with people who are passionate about coffee but haven't necessarily been taught how to work hard and have perseverance to go the distance to do the thing that you love, and that there will be pain points in doing that. They just have never been taught that. And our industry is going to suffer if we're not patient with these individuals about how to get there long term.
And also knowing how to, like, it can be frustrating or off-putting to have to try to coach someone on something that's just that you feel like is inherent to you, but is totally not inherent to that person.
There's a great book on this. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Check it out. It's if you want the short version of it, go listen to Jonathan Haidt on the Joe Rogan podcast. It was just earlier this week. It is fantastic. He talks about the detriment that we have. I want to say we've bestowed on our youth because we have coddled them, and we haven't let them have free play, and we haven't let them fail and fall and figure out how to get up and do all this kind of stuff. They're feeling the consequences of that now as they're entering the workforce and coming into their 30s and doing things like having babies and trying to make it in life, and now having to learn these things much later in life. That is about the hardship that comes with the world.
Excuse me.
You all right, mate? You've been a trooper though. Like, we've been chatting for about an hour and a half. You've absolutely nailed it.
Thank you. How much have you been around the younger generation, the Gen Zs?
I'm quite a lot with regards to the industry, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited and very concerned because of all of that. How about you?
Not a ton, but we're starting to kind of see them come in and come through as baristas. But man, there are some really special ones that that are really like have some of the really positive traits that a lot of millennials have, but then also have like the exact opposites of some of the things that can drive people crazy about millennials. They seem like there's a lot of them that are like really great self-motivators and self-starters, and have an ability to take things very serious in a very healthy way, super young, like even as young as 16, 17, 18 years old, which is something that, like, I mean, kind of growing up as a millennial, there were so few of us that in high school or even through college, like, knew how to take things appropriately seriously in a healthy way. So yeah, I'm super encouraged by how so many of that next generation seem to kind of have that innately.
I feel like the exciting thing about Gen Z is that they seem to have the freedom that is so beautifully comes with the millennial mindset, but they also have the work ethic of the Gen Xers that they were raised by.
Yeah.
I feel like millennials were parented by the oldest of the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
Who were closer to the baby boomers age. And I feel that they came with a lot of guilt, like post-war and blah, 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 right? And now Gen Z were parented by my age of, the early 40s to mid 40s Gen Xers, who kind of have this distance from the closeness that war had. We didn't know that kind of guilt, the post-war guilt. For us, it was about getting on with it, and it's absolutely about hard work for us. But then there was this sense of coming into the 80s, and there was when technology really started to experience, the computers started to come out and whatnot. We had to be adaptive. We had to be open-minded to the beginnings of the internet age. And so what I'm really excited about is that Gen Z have that, but they also have this sense of, we don't have the politeness that our parents' era had. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to tell you that you're fucking up our future with the bullshit laws that you're making.
Yeah.
And you need to sort your gun crisis out because you're killing my generation. That's what they're saying. And I think it's so inspiring.
Yeah, and it's without the weird millennial, like, do this thing for me while I don't do anything for myself.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
Very active, very like knowing how to take responsibility and how to mobilize.
The only thing that I would like to see more of, and time will tell. I feel like we're losing the art of nuanced conversation and nuanced debate. There's this, with that mob mobilization comes this idea of certain ways of engaging with each other, where I feel that, and I've experienced it firsthand, when millennials come at me saying things where they don't want to actually look at what I've said. They read the first couple of words of what I've said, and then they attack and they mobilize all their social justice warrior friends. It's like, motherfuckers, you want to have actual read of what I've written before you attack me and then have to come back and say sorry. What I would like people to start doing more of is engaging in discussion. You don't have to agree with each other. It is healthy for you to talk to people you disagree with. I want to see more of that, especially in our industry where we've got people that want to start accusing other people for shit that they don't even know if they've done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of that comes out of social media, like with the nuanced conversation and debate. Like, I think for a lot of people, they're not comfortable saying something that might not be valid. Like, I love having conversations where I can say something and then you tell me why that's invalid or why that's incorrect.
Dude, it feeds me.
Yeah. I just learned a new perspective, or I just learned a new way to think about that. Or maybe we still disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. Like, that's engaging. That's fun for me.
And respectful, right?
Exactly. I think with, like, maybe especially with the Gen Zs, it can be scary to do that because we've grown up seeing people like be just brutalized by saying things that aren't popular, and then not really having a platform to like you can't really go against the mainstream. Like, and like, if you tried finding a comment section on a post that's just getting obliterated,
oh yeah,
and try advocating for that post. Like, you can't do it. It's impossible. You're just always going to be drowned out. So I think there will be a little bit of learning how to not act like that way, like in actual real life. Like when you're having conversations, you actually have a floor and you have a face and you have a presence, and you're not just just letters on a screen like you are on social media. So I think we'll see that kind of turn, but social is still so young. Social media hasn't been mainstream for maybe as like a core part of life like it is for 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe. So yeah, I think that'll probably turn at some point. I'm ready for it to turn.
I heard it's really interesting. There was a conversation that happened here in San Diego where somebody who had come on this podcast was pulled aside by a millennial and told by that millennial, dude, the thing that you said on the podcast with Lee, where you agreed with her about her comments about subject XYZ, you kind of want to be careful about that, because Lee's got opinions and it's not okay to have opinions.
Oh, Lord.
Especially because her opinions go against what most people think. And he said, but dude, I actually agree with Leah's opinions. I think she was talking logical. He said, it's fine. You can have those opinions, but you'd be better off, for the sake of your brand, not to publicly agree with Lee, because then you make yourself a target. And it's like, fuck, where are we at if what we're doing is we're letting ourselves be beholden to the mob?
Yeah.
Like, no, I want to be someone who engages someone who disagrees with me, even if it's not the popular opinion.
And to know how to disagree with someone or have someone disagree with you without that putting a target on somebody. Like, we don't have to be on this like crusade of getting people to think the way that we do and believe the things that we do. Like, I'm sure there are dozens of things that you and I disagree on, and that's awesome.
It's great
working together. We love talking to each other, and yeah. So it's
like dude, open my mind.
Finding value in the ways that people think differently and approach things differently. Like, we need people that see the world differently than others. Otherwise, there's going to be all sorts of things that get worse and worse and worse and never improve. If everyone thinks the same way, then everyone's going to have the same holes in their thoughts and the way that they see things. So,
and something for our industry to be really cognizant of is this idea of, as Gen Z come into our industry, some statistics that I heard this week. So my generation didn't have social media at all through what you call middle school here, or elementary school, middle school, like up through high school or college. We didn't have it at all. We didn't experience it until we got into the business world. And then there's the millennials who didn't really experience any, like, depending on what, like the early millennials experienced social media in college. The back end of the millennial generation experienced it in high school. Gen Z experienced social media in elementary school.
Yeah.
The result of that, of what they're seeing, is that suicide rates in preteens, because of bullying, have gone from 7% for people who experienced, so the back end of millennials who experienced social media in high school, to 20% in preteen females. Now, we have to take this very seriously as a workplace that is going to be on the receiving end of many of these kids.
Yeah.
We have to learn these things about how to communicate with them. there's going to be a shift in paradigm, because most of the people who own these businesses are going to be Gen Xers or early millennials, and understanding how to deal with a lot of these personality traits of people who have been victimized. There's a lot of this. We tend to attract, as an industry, the most insecure of human beings. We really do.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do is start learning how to communicate with that, and stop expecting these people that are coming into our industry to behave and approach work exactly the same way that we do, because that's not fair. And we're not going to find success if we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And also identifying like the companies that are the most successful right now are the ones that understood fairly early on or caught up to how to actually value millennials and how to actually use their, like, deal with the fact that they don't want to work 41 hours a week, and that, you know, they're not going to put in the 55 hours a week for the most part, that some of the Gen X's would. Like dealing with some of the things that might drive you crazy, or you might wish were different, but then also how to access and unlock the things that make them
the gems.
Yeah, exactly.
Within them.
The real valuable pieces.
Have you guys had much success with that at the Roasterie?
Yeah, I think so. We have I don't know, we have a really, our team really works very well together. So we always will give each other shit across.
Gotta love that. Across
generations. I always tell the Gen X's, I always call them baby boomers, which they love.
That's fantastic. The recycled baby boomers.
Yeah, which they love. And they always throw the stereotypical millennial shit at me. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we have a culture that really just blends all that stuff together really well. And we all, I mean, we have we all kind of have the common goal, work well together, have a very nice, we're all open to covering for one another. It's always been a very team-oriented environment. So because our company that was started 25 years ago in somebody's basement, and now have grown into something much larger, we kind of learn how to, it doesn't really work at a company like this if you're in green coffee and quality, to only focus on green coffee and quality.
Stagnant, yeah.
Yeah, like you gotta flex and be able to jump all over the place, and really see everybody as a team with focused roles. That doesn't mean that you don't also pack orders, or you don't also jump in cold brew or help in the cafes or whatever. So for that reason, I think it's pretty natural for us to, because we're used to kind of covering for each other and flexing a lot in like what we're physically doing, it also is fairly natural for us to do that kind of in terms of skill sets, and knowing like which people, just kind of knowing who to look to and who not to look to for certain things, and not holding that against anybody, but just kind of recognizing that different skill sets give value in different areas. Yeah,
different strengths. Like you've got to just let people be strong at what they're strong at, and not lean on them for the shit that they're not strong at.
Yeah, and let them try not to suck as bad as what they suck at.
You know, I'm all about inspiring
in a gracious way, show them what they suck at, and maybe give them some ideas of how to not suck at it.
Be okay with high-fiving someone when they pull an espresso shot.
Which is a not quite as elegant way to say conspiring to each other's success.
What a great spot to end our conversation on, as my head bobbles away in the dark over here. As you can see, it's the sun's going down here.
Yes, and it is.
Yeah, it's what, 7:15 where you are in the evening?
Yep, 7:15.
Dude, thank you for a stellar effort in just showing up on a Friday afternoon, and I'm glad we could accommodate all the shifting that needed to happen. It's always awesome for me to have a conversation with you. I feel very blessed that our paths crossed, and I'm excited about knowing you for decades to come.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me on. I love this podcast, so it's an honor to
thank you
to be on it, and to kind of share the platform. So thank you very much for having me on.
It's my pleasure, and we'd love to have you back again as your career progresses and all the cool things that you're doing with the Roasterie keep just evolving. It's such an exciting company.
Yeah, it is. We're never running out of we're never running out of new things to do and learn and focus on. So
awesome. Well, have a very happy 2019.
Okay, you too.
Thank you, sir. And we'll see you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Peace. See you. Bye.
Bye.